Reading, learning, thriving, creating, while building, living, thinking, healing, loving, building, writing while black, black, black.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Writing
Hello,
While Black
hello.
Eyes. Hello, hello. This is Angela, your host of Writing While Black. Our co-host, Ayoka B, is not here with us at the moment, but we do have a special guest with us today who's already bursting at the seams to say hello, hello, hello. We have Hope with us today.
Hello, hello.
Hi, also
Hi.
known by her writing name, H. Knotty. For those who don't know about Miss H. Knotty, author extraordinaire, Hope is a proud native of Colorado. When she's not imagining ways to make her characters' lives harder, Hope's status as an audiophile has her constantly looking for new music from local bands to the latest Broadway musical coming to her hometown. When all else fails, Hope loves to cook and plan her next adventure with her husband and fur baby, whether that's down the street, across the country, or on the other side of the pond. So welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
I'm so happy to have you here.
That's who I am in a nutshell.
All right. Can you talk about when you became a writer and why you became a writer? And I am especially curious about whether you have an intention or desire with your writing.
Gotcha. Okay, yeah, let's start at the beginning. So I started writing in high school, actually. I had a project for the program I was in. They called it a personal project, and you could do anything you want. And so people were like literally building rockets and building car engines. And I was like, could I write a book? And they said yes. So that was my first shot at it when I was 15. I wrote a book, and it was garbage.
Wait. But before 15, had you thought, I want to write a book, I want to write a book, want to write a book, and then the opportunity came and you took it, or did it just pop into your head? I can do anything, I want to write a book.
Okay, maybe I actually go further back in my personal history and talk about my actual reading journey, because that probably really speaks to everything else. So when I was much younger, I actually was a terrible reader. I didn't have the supports in school to really keep me on track. By the time I got to fourth grade, I was reading at like a kindergarten level. And my parents were rightfully horrified because they're like, we do not want our child to be so far behind in reading. They switched schools for me so that I started a school that supported my reading. And so by the end of my fourth grade, not only was I on target, but I was going ahead of target. That's really where my love of reading started in fourth grade, when I was like, well, like these things on the page that used to make no sense to me, this is a story, and this is a really good story, actually. So yeah, that's where...
Wait. So hold on. I want to do a sidebar. Can you talk a little bit about your literacy journey? You said in fourth grade you were reading at a kindergarten level, and then you switched schools. Do you have a consciousness? Do you remember what was different in your old school and in your new school?
Yeah, absolutely. So long ago, but some like memories. I remember when my parents presented this to the school administrative team, they basically said, Hope is clearly struggling, but she's not low enough to qualify for our like special ed program or something like that. And I think it's because you had to be struggling in like, all subjects as opposed to a single subject. That was my original elementary school. Because my math scores were okay and all of my behavior was fine, they refused to put me in a like program geared towards reading improvement. Between third and fourth grade, my parents decided, yeah, no, we're not playing that game with our kids. Both of my parents were very into like education. My dad had his PhD, my mom has her master's. Education was really important to them. So
there's reading in your home growing up. Your parents are reading that is so fascinating to me, because my unexpert theory is that if your parents are reading, then you're going to be a reader. And so I'm so shocked. One of the things we think about and work on here at Writing While Black is literacy. It's so important for us as Black people. Critical thinking, literacy, where they overlap. So that's the sidebar. I'll go back.
But actually, that I feel like the fact that I'm black and I was in a primarily white space, that definitely factored into these kind of decisions that these white people were making on my behalf. And my parents, God bless them, probably saw that for what it was. Like, you know, a third grader, you're not thinking about like any sort of racialized decision making, but you know, adults are like, yeah, no, we are moving our child, actually our children, because my brother was about to start going to that school. He's a few years younger. They said, nah, we're going to take them both and put them in a different school where they will actually support me personally in terms of my literacy, but also just an environment that's really more geared student needs and parent wishes. And so that's probably really where my story begins, is like fourth grade when I picked up my first book. Hold on.
Do you have your first book?
I do.
What is it?
Ella Enchanted. It's a Cinderella retelling, and that's probably what really spoke to me because I was a kid and I started recognizing some of these things in here. And this was the first book in fourth grade that I ever read by myself where I was like, okay, this reading stuff could be really cool and fun.
Wow.
From there, it was just like, go, go, go. And then come 10th grade, they were like, hey, you need to do a personal project. And I was like, well, you know, my hobby is reading. What if I tried to write something?
So you said the book was trash, but what did you write about? What was the book about?
The book was totally trash. It's actually a story that I'm really interested in revisiting, like right now in my adulthood. After I complete what I'm working on presently, that's the next thing on my writing agenda. But it was sort of like, okay, so at the time, here we go. Some problematic people that I definitely did read as a kid. I was reading Harry Potter, obviously, that's very in my age. I was reading Twilight, both series that I have personal problems with now. But I was like, how can I play with this idea of like fantasy and magic? And so that's really what that story was. It was set at a magical school with two people. One was a student and one was this guy who was like going against the government, which at 15, I didn't really have a full handle on that. Now in my 30s, I'm like, oh yeah, I can write this real easily. It's almost like we're living this experience that I was saying to write about. And so that's why it's a story that right now is speaking to me. Because even when I was 15, I started putting in all of these threads of like questionable government and these people who were trying to fight against that. And I did not have a handle on it when I was 15. Now I think I could probably do it justice, which is why I say it's trash. All those pieces were there, but I didn't really know how to tease them out to make a really compelling story. And now I think I could.
Is Dangerous Dance your first published?
Yes. I've written 7 books, but this is the first one I've published.
Okay.
It's dark, by the way. Dark Dance.
Oh, Dark Dance. I'm sorry. I'm looking at Day Duets. Is Dangerous Duets part of the series
Yes.
title? Okay.
Nicely.
Get Me Together, Dark Dance. You better say the name of my book right.
Dark Dance and Dark Game, which is right here, obviously.
I read Dark Dance last night.
Ooh,
Yesterday.
girl.
I read it yesterday. Dark Dance is your first out. What did you want to accomplish with it? Why did you write it? Tell us a little bit about it.
Time. Okay, so it's interesting that we're talking about writing while black because that is why I wrote this book. It's a very long story. Late 2023, I was in a different city with my husband and his family, and it is important for the story to know that he is white and his family is white, obviously.
We're just at the beginning of talking about Dark Dance, getting the background story.
Yeah. It was 2023, and I was up in Estes Park with my husband and his family, and we were just doing family things. It was between Christmas and New Year's, so we were buying things. We were just really enjoying each other's company. Towards the end of that day, I was approached by this woman who started accusing me of stealing something from her store. And I was like, girl, I have money. I don't need to steal your crap. I literally was like, I don't need to steal. But it really escalated so much faster than I thought. And she called the police on me, which was truly the most terrifying moment of my life because I was thinking about Elijah McClain. I don't know if you recognize that name, but that was Colorado, and that was local news like 2 days before, where the men who murdered him had gotten off. So I had all of these just like, I had like a straight up panic attack. Because I was like, okay, well, Elijah McClain literally was doing nothing, and I'm actually being accused of a crime. That experience was pretty awful, but obviously I made it out alive, which was never a guarantee when you're Black, when you're like interacting with the police. And that experience left me just really angry, really scared, feeling really out of control of my life. And so I started writing. And I took all of that anger and I put it in this book. And Angela, you read it now, so you can kind of see how much violence, anger, angst was just like put in there. And I started writing because like I could feel it in my body. It was literally eating me up. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't focus. And I was like, I've got to do something to get myself under control. And so I turned to my art, which is writing, and that is how we got Dark Dance. That is the short version of a very long story. But yeah.
When you wrote it, it was as catharsis. It wasn't like, I have a vision, I want to put this beautiful thing out to the world. You were like, I gotta get this stuff out of me, this shit out of me.
I've been traumatized. I need to go traumatize my reader now.
Right! And poor Dove. Why we traumatize the Dove?
That's why.
Okay.
To do something, I needed to play God in a really dark situation so that I felt like I knew how far I could take it. I knew that ultimately it was going to end well because it's a romance at the end of the day. And so that was such an important part of my healing journey, is to just get all of this out. And the other part is I hadn't been writing for like years at that point. That was a chance for me to get back into my art, and it was great. It was a terrible experience that started it, but ultimately it moved me in the direction I want to be, which is being a full-time writer, putting my art out there for other people to be traumatized by, but also enjoy on some level.
That tracks for me. That does something for me, actually.
Yeah.
But I still have the question, how do you reconcile the violence and the romance? That's the part that I can't wrap my mind around.
That's a great question. So the first scenes I wrote, unsurprisingly, were the 3 most violent scenes. And so when I stepped back, I was like, okay, well, I have created an interesting challenge for myself because I said this was a romance. Right now, it looks like a thriller or a murder mystery. It looks like something that I didn't intend. That was a challenge for me to think through Dove's character, how she was going to interact with RJ, how she was going to respond to him. At one point, I realized it was all from Dove's POV. And then I stepped out, I was like, this is dark. Like, this is maybe too dark for me as a reader. And I can read some pretty dark, heavy crap. So this was like, all right, I need to step back. I need to think about where his voice lies in this, because obviously he needs a voice if this is ever really going to work as a romance, just because of the choices that he makes and the violence that he perpetrates. I needed his voice. And that's that's where the second book comes in, because that's where he gets a lot more space. And I was really able to delve into some of the things I was hinting at, like the conversation on the phone with his dad, where it leads to him just falling off a cliff emotionally. I was like, well, what does that actually look like in a father-son relationship where a simple conversation can literally throw someone off the deep end? So that was an interesting challenge for me, and I feel like I mostly accomplished it. Some people might be like, too much, get away from me. But at the same time, I actually respect someone who's like, yeah, this was too much for me. I'm like, yeah, having the police called on you randomly is too much for anybody. And so that is exactly how I felt. And I sort of wanted to recreate that racial dynamic as well, in terms of this was a white woman who called the police on me. And I don't need to explain to this group of people, like, when white women call the cops on people, it does not always end well for the brown people. And so all of that angst just went right in there.
Totally understand anger and the getting it out. But if that had happened to me and I wrote something, the people who would have been being terrorized would be white people. So that part I don't quite understand. Like, we getting our virtual revenge on Lil Dove?
The white people get it. This is part 2. This is Dark Game. RJ has to make up for what he did narratively. Some people will be like, yeah, no, unforgivable. And again, I'm like, I respect that, because if I met RJ in real life, straight to prison, like 100% right to prison. But I'm like, but in a book world, that's the only place I actually want to see these people get redemption. I don't want to see them redeemed in real life. Only in fantasy.
Okay. When did you release Dark Dance? And when did you release Dark Game? Did you release them one after the other? Because they say if you have something in a series, it's good so that people can go right on to the next one.
I waited a few months in between. I wrote Dark Dance first, and I published it in February of this year.
Okay.
Before I published it, I was already working on Dark Game, which turned out to be a good thing, because there were some things that I was talking about in the second book. I was like, maybe I need to set that up in the first book, actually. So I was able to go back and make small changes along the way to just do a little bit of set up before the payoff. And then I released Dark Game in September. So there was a few months in between, which was necessary between finishing the book and, going through edits and all those many things that people have to do if they're self-publishing, getting a cover designer. So that was a good space in between for me to just also kind of step back from what Dark Dance is, because that is truly a trauma dump. All the trauma I was feeling went right into that book. By the time I got around to Dark Game, I was like, well, now I have to make this a love story somehow. How am I going to do that? And that's what I did. I just started writing. I started pulling the pieces together. I started, discovering things about both characters. I was like, oh, I didn't know that when I was writing all these traumatic moments, because that's where my focus was. But now I have to think of them as full people, full characters.
So Dark Dance is out in February, March, April. Dark Game is out in April. So you got your babies out into the world. How's it been? What's that experience of being an indie author for you?
It's been great. I've tried traditional publishing before, and like so many people, but so many Black people especially, it was just like door closing, door creaking open, and then slammed in your face, and you're like, okay, well, thank you for getting all my hopes up, and never mind. When I wrote Dark Dance and I realized this is the book I want to publish, I knew, one, the level of violence that was in there. I was like, this would be a hard sell even if I was a very popular author already, let alone a brand new author. So I was like, all right, well, I'm going to be publishing it myself, obviously. I'm going to be going down that route. I felt pretty comfortable doing that because I had spent years going through the traditional publishing route. I was very familiar with that. And so I was like, I don't have to follow any of those rules, thank God. So I decided pretty quickly too. Like I started writing Dark Dance in January, and by February, so like even a month into the writing process, I was like, yeah, this isn't going to be traditionally published. No way. And more importantly, I'm really disinterested personally in the traditionally published sphere. I have personal experience with it, but I have like friends and family who have also experienced it, all Black women, and we all basically have the same story. And so that's why trad publishing is off the table for me for the foreseeable future. I'm really happy with being able to write how I want, write what I want, and then present it to the world. And some people will read it and be like, hard pass, and I'm like, that's okay. And I've had people just like eat it up, and I'm like, you didn't pause at all with some of those scenes? Go for it. So it's been a really good experience. I've gotten really nothing but positive feedback from people. Some people who are like, ooh, this was like right on that edge of what I can handle. And I'm like, that was actually the point. The point of this was to take it right up to the edge of what a human being might want to read. and then push you over a little bit.
Yeah, I don't have my thoughts all organized yet about the whole dark romance genre. I listened to a book called Plie. Plie deals with cinema type stuff, those kind of scenes. And dark romance is not romantic fantasy, from what I can tell, from what I've experienced. Like, I dream of being swept off my feet, but it's maybe like, right. I mean, it could, I mean, I feel like I guess if he treats you good, but he out here killing people, is that a good person? I don't know. But it's not like millionaire, like he sweeps it off my feet, and I mean, you know, we go and he treats me so good. It's not that kind of fantasy, but I'm like, maybe it's delving into people's sexual fantasies, because being raped is a sexual fantasy. Like, there are some things that are like out there that seem to be themes in dark romance that are like fantasies. So I'm like, well, maybe that's what it's hitting on, which I'm a romance girl. I like my stuff sweet and kind and gentle. I don't really, it doesn't resonate with me, but it won't be my reading genre. I've read now, I think, 3 books that I think are in, so I'm going to intellectually understand it.
Dark romance is such a tricky genre, I think, because ultimately the idea is a romance, right? This is meant to be a happily ever after or a happy for now. I've read everything from, like, I would describe it as, like, light gray. There was some dub con in there. Like, you were both drunk and maybe you shouldn't have been doing that. All the way to what I've written and then beyond. I have read some truly unhinged dark romance where I was like, how are you going to make me love these men? Because they are objectively the worst people. If you think R.J. Cage is bad, I have read male characters that are out there. And yet, a person who really can pull together tension and their craft is really working, they can do something where it's like, how did you make me fall in love with these men who should be in prison for the rest of their natural days? That's what I like about dark romance. It really challenges me. It's like, it's really easy to like get a cinnamon roll and be like, he is just the sweetest guy. It's very different to have like a mob boss who's killing left, right, and center and kidnaps you and takes you out of the country. How do you find empathy for that person? Someone who's really on top of their craft can draw me in. I've read books where at the end I'm like, something's wrong with me because I enjoyed every second of that, and no part of that should have been enjoyable, and yet I ate it up and I'm rereading it right now.
2 things. Human beings are complicated, and the same asshole is still a human. Like, there's something to love, in my opinion, in everybody. Even somebody who's in jail or who's done terrible things, there's something there that caused it. And then I kind of feel like, as black folks, we've been kidnapped, we've been raped. I mean, and so here we are, and then we'd be like, I love America, I love, you know, and like, they call it Stockholm Syndrome, although when I looked it up, I'm like, I think it was about 8 people for like about 8 hours, and it's like gazillions of us for hundreds of years. So I'm going to start calling it Negro Syndrome, because
like that,
we do fall in love with our captors on some level, and it's an area to explore as black folks. That perspective is...
Dark romance is tricky because it is big. You could open a dark romance and be like, where was the darkness? Like, I've read romances that were labeled that way, and I'm like, like, we got a little creepy. There was some light stalking. That wasn't that bad, but that's more of a scale thing, right? And then there's things where I'm like, why are these people in prison, and why are they getting a love story? This is... and everything in between. So, yeah, that's what I tell people who are like, I don't read a lot of dark romance. I'm like, you could pick up 2 wildly different types of books, and they're both considered dark romance. I know you did an interview with Jasmine, and she wrote a dark romance, and it is definitely leaning more in the consent area than the non-consent area. It's a wide range.
Because Jasmine didn't seem to be dark romance. Yes, the characters had some issues.
They did.
You know, like to kill people and things. However, to me, they were morally gray versus a dark romance, because he wasn't hurting her. You know what I'm saying?
Well, that's what I mean by a dark romance. It's like we're both categorized as dark romance, but like someone might really like Jasmine's and then read mine and be like, what is this madness? But also think it has to do with intention. Like, my intention for this book was to get all the madness, all the violence in my brain and put it somewhere outside of my body. And in this case, it was my book.
With that statement, will you stay within dark romance? Is your next one going to be?
Yes, but it's going to be very different. One thing that was really important in the first book was this lack of consent, because that's what I felt. I felt like I did not agree to this situation in any way, shape, or form, and it was such a switch, because I was literally there with family. I was just having just one of the best days, honestly. It was truly one of the best days, because this is family from out of the state. We hadn't seen them in so long. A feeling of so much joy flipped completely out of my control to so much fear. It was really important for me to explore in Dark Dance, and consent is definitely key in Dark Game. If you guys get around to the second one, you don't need to worry about any more of that kind of behavior, especially from RJ. But with the next story I'm writing, I'm actually going to be exploring Dove's sister, Raven. I'm going to explore her story with her love interest. I'm really interested in talking about some different things. One thing that's really speaking to me as a writer is the idea of parasocial relationships. It's everywhere. These people who don't actually know the actor or the writer or the singer, they start believing that they know this person and that they're in love with that person. That's something I see all over Threads and Instagram. I'm like, you're talking to them like you have an actual relationship when you've only interacted with them through their art, which, as you guys know, because you've read my art now, that could be like a snapshot in time, like a really bad snapshot in time. So that's something I'm exploring with the Raven character. How is that functioning right now in society? This idea of people falling in love with people they don't know based solely on their artistic output. It is a dark romance, but it's going to be very different.
Falling in love or falling in hate, because who was the actor? Was it Tito, who played Tito Brown? And he said people come up to him on the street still, and they're like mad at him, and he's like, "Ma'am, that was a role I was playing." Like they'd be like, "A long time ago." Like, what is going on? I'm an actor.
Like, people create these images of other people, and then they act upon those images as opposed to not. And so, yeah, that's what's calling to me now as a writer and as an artist. I'm about to kind of putting myself out there, and I might find myself a victim of a parasocial relationship in terms of someone thinks they know me and they start stalking me or following me, and it's like, I want to explore that now before I get anywhere close to that.
Preemptive strike preparation. Even just in regular life, we think we know people, and a lot of times we're operating on things that we think. We extrapolate from something, and we don't know people. It's like, get to know people, ask questions, observe.
So it's a dark romance, but that's because I'm in my dark romance era. I conceived Dark Dance as a standalone, and then it was like, well, actually, it's a duet. Well, actually, maybe it's 4 books because I want to do the sister. And so it started getting larger and larger. Once I finish this duet of duets, that's what I've been calling it, I'm going to move on to maybe fantasy or sci-fi, because that was what I read all the way through college. If I was picking up a book for pleasure, it was almost always fantasy or sci-fi. So I'm interested in going back and exploring that with the writing skills I have now.
I'm going to be very forthright. I did not finish. I was not able to finish Dark Dance. However, what I read, I really enjoy your writing.
Thank
You
you.
are an excellent writer. I really enjoyed it, and the story pulled me along. And it set in college, and it just makes you think about back when you were in college.
College, yeah. Like, what would I do if I was in Dove's situation? Probably would have stabbed him, personally.
Right. But I wanted to say that because I did enjoy the writing. Me not finishing had to deal with the content versus your writing, I think was excellent. But
take that as like a person's experience. Like, your writing's great, but that content is too much, and I'm like, that's okay. That's okay. Because trauma happens to everyone, but you don't always want to engage in someone else's trauma, especially because I didn't present it like Dove is experiencing literally what I experienced in terms of like the police being called on her. I really reevaluated the kind of trauma that I wanted her to experience. And part of that was just like a personal break. I'm like, I cannot write about police right now. It's not a thing I can do. But I'm like, but I can create a traumatic experience for my female character that then I can explore and move through. So if you finish and you get to that scene and you're like, this is just too much, just know that was actually the point.
It's funny because books have trigger warnings, and I guess I'm not really sensitive to stuff like that. I'm just like, yeah, this is effed up, but...
And that's why I have a trigger warning, because it's like, I don't tell people exactly what's going on in there, but I'm like, if you have a problem with child abuse or dub or non-con, maybe don't read this book, or go into it very cautiously, because
Right.
not only is there the scene towards the beginning, which is obviously problematic, but then I start building their relationship, and then he does something else, and it's like, yeah, but that's literally how I felt, where it's like I had this moment where I was like, being like, why are you accusing me of this? Like, woman, I don't know who you are. I wouldn't steal. And then she decided to just escalate it to a place where I was like, how did we get here? How did I go from hanging out with my family to the police literally being called on me for a crime I did not commit? Which, that's the end of that story, which is they went back to the store. They found the piece of jewelry I had supposedly stolen. And I was like, so all of that was for nothing. Thank you
For your
traumatizing
trauma.
me.
It's the ongoing trauma, babe. The system. The stuff that like will shoot me like, ah! It'll be something my husband is watching on the news, or I'll hear the guy with the British accent with his know-it-all, smarmy ass self, and that's like, I need a trigger warning for that, because that will like stress me the H out. The book, I mean,
Why we don't do news here?
right. Now,
Play that game.
the book, I was kind of like, yeah, but other stuff, I'm like, ah!
Yeah, I need trigger warnings anytime a certain orange person starts talking, because I just can't hear his voice anymore. It's literally triggering hearing his voice. I'm like, nope, turn it off. Turn it off.
Right.
I can't listen to that voice. So,
Right.
yeah, trigger warning for life.
Earlier, you mentioned what you were working on presently. Is that the Raven piece, the sister?
Yes. That is going to be a rock star cowboy romance mashup. Don't know how I'm going to do that. I think I've read 1 cowboy romance and 0 rock star romances, so I'm going to be flying by the seat of my pants as I write these books.
You had me looking up terms. Well, let me just tell you, when I bought your book, the ebook version, I went to Kindle to read it. Kindle, it opens it up to the prologue, and I just started reading. Meaning,
You skipped the
did not-
trigger warnings.
exactly.
Yep, those are important.
So I'm reading and enjoying it, and then it's getting, and I'm like,
We
and
should
so
talk to
I go
Amazon
back,
about that.
and I'm like, there should be a trigger warning. Of course, I slide it back and see that there is one. Thank you, Kindle. And so I go to your website to get the details, and I said, oh, she has me looking up terms because I didn't know any of the terms like DubCon and non-con.
That was far more strategic.
Lesson.
Using those terms is actually a strategic move that I made, because Amazon can sometimes flag something for its content. If you're black and female, you're more likely to experience that. And so when I said like DubCon and non-con, I'm telling my reader, hey, here's what you can expect without me actually using the words. If you use one word in particular, it will red flag you. So I was like, well, I've gone from the first scene, which it's right on that edge, someone could say dub or non, but that second scene, there's no question that's a non-con scene. Like, she's like, stop this, and he's panicking, so he loses his ability to make good decisions in that moment. There's a second paragraph in my trigger warning speaking to people who know me personally. If you know me personally, I like to think that I live my name. I'm a really hopeful person. I'm a really positive person in general. I always try to find, that silver lining. I'm that kind of person. I knew people in my life reading this would be like, what is wrong with Hope? This seems so not her. And I'm like, yeah, because that whole experience is something that I never thought I would find myself in, where I'm being accused of a crime I did not commit. If I had committed the crime, that would be one thing, but I never thought I'd find myself in a position like I did. And so that final paragraph, so I was like, hey, just be aware, I've got some violent little brain goblins, and they're on a page now, so if you don't want to see my brain goblins, you should just walk away, family and friends.
I want to go back or back and forward. Your book is out in the world. Your books, Dark Dance and Dark Game, are out in the world. The babies are out there, and you feel like it's been going really, really well. Have you stumbled upon anything in terms of marketing that has been surprisingly effective, or somebody told you to do it and you did it and it worked? And do you feel like I'm winning, Mom? I'm winning.
I have to learn like 10 different skills now. I thought all I had to do was write a book, but when you self-publish, that means that everything truly is on you. You can hire out some things, but in terms of the marketing, that's 100% me. And I kind of look through my socials and I see what speaks to me. And I try to kind of recreate that with my own spin. If I'm like, ooh, like if I watch a video 3 or 4 times, that's saying something to me as a viewer. I do a lot of analysis of other people's posts. That's all I'll say is like, what about this? Is it the music? Is it the speed? I'm always analyzing what's going on, so then I can try to recreate that in some fashion. Right now I'm in a lull. I'm doing more reading than writing, and so if you go on my Instagram, you'll mostly just see like book reviews from me. But I am literally starting to revamp what I want to do for this first duet. It's a complete story, and it was really hard to promote it as one book because cards on the table, it ends with a cliffhanger, and most people are going to be like, when does the next book come out? Because you can't just end it like that and call it a romance. That's crazy. Promoting
Happy with the ending. I was like, because I was so stressed out. Like, I know it's not going to end the way I think it's going to end.
Probably. Well, yeah, because you get to like 95% of the book and you're like, okay, something's up. But yeah, so promoting 2 books at once has actually been a lot easier because I can really link them. I can tell people it's a complete story. Promo I feel like it's going to be a forever challenge until I can afford someone who has the skills to do it for me. Sometimes I might spend hours on Canva and nobody looked at it. I have like 5 views, and then something that, it's so true, like when you slap something up there, people are like eating it up, and then when you craft it and you spend hours thinking it through and you post it, people are like, yeah, okay, swipe. So yeah, I don't know if you have any advice. I'm in the advice mode right now. I'm happy to take people's advice when it comes to promoting.
No, keep doing what you're doing, talking to people. That's it. One book at a time. Are you at the point in your journey where, when I was reading Dark Dance yesterday, can you see that this morning? Oh, I had 300 page turns or whatever. Were you like, woo? Or is it like not even a blip on your radar?
No, actually, it's probably something I should stop doing because I incessantly check my KDP to just see like how many pages were read. But also, it's part of my marketing. Obviously, I get more reads on Friday, Saturday, Sunday because it's the weekend and that's when people can read. But if suddenly I have a bunch of reads on a random Tuesday, I might be like, okay, what happened? Did I post something? Did someone else post something? It's a constant learning process, and you're always just trying to analyze the details you have. Over the last 4 days, it was kind of like, who's reading it? Because I don't.
And I always talk to my husband's readers like virtually, because of course with the big, Amazonian piece of garbage, you don't know who the people are. You don't know who bought the book. You don't know. So I just talk to him virtually. Oh, thank you for reading. Yeah. I hope you enjoy it. Go to the newsletter. But you don't know who them people are.
No. Well, you don't even know if they finished it. Technically, you can see the number of pages. You can even see which books are being read. But I'm like, but did 100 people read 10 pages? Or did 3 people finish it? So
Yeah,
that's my
yeah.
next complaint. I need more breakdown because I know you guys know. I know they have the data. They just don't share it
They
with
have the
us.
data. They're just not going to give it to us.
They're in the data mining business,
Yeah.
like all of these big
Right.
corporations. They want the
Right.
data. So,
Right.
do you
That's
are
their
you selling it any
mandate.
other way where you have access to the data, or is it on? Okay, okay.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
actually do. I am selling signed author copies through my website specifically. And so if you buy the duet, you get a whole bunch of other things, including a bookmark with the character art. That was so much fun to like commission and work through. When she drew Dove, I was like, I don't need to say it. No notes. Dove is perfect. You like literally how I see her. RJ, we kind of had to work through some of the things with him because I was like, he looks a certain way in my brain, and I really want him to look like that. But yeah, so if you buy the duet from me through my author page, you'll get some book goodies, including a bookmark with the character art.
And that's knottycreation.com or KNOTTY. Okay, creation.com. We'll put the link in the description.
Awesome. It's also on my Instagram page. The first link that you could pick will take you to my author page.
And your IG is
Is Hope It's a Good Book.
I hope it's a good book. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because my IG page started as just I was a reader doing reviews, and so I was like, well, I hope it's a good book, and that's a play on my name, so that will be my name. And then I started writing, and so I do have my pen name, but I tell people to just call me Hope because I'm like, what would you call me? Knotty? That's weird. Please don't call me Knotty.
HH. Naughty girl. You're a naughty girl.
I did write a pretty naughty book.
You talked about as a 15-year-old, I didn't have the skill to do then, but I have the skill to do now. Talk about your process of developing as a writer. Is there a program that you're on, or is the program writing?
The program is writing. Actually, I used Word for like ever, and now I use Scrivener, and that is probably the best program for me. The way stories come to me, I see scenes or I hear dialogue, but it's not connected to a larger story, which is why I say Dark Dance was such a challenge because I wrote these 3 scenes, and then I was like, okay, I have to figure out a story that convincingly links these 3 pretty different scenes together. Scrivener allows me to write a chapter and then place it anywhere in the narrative that it belongs. Sometimes I'm like, I don't know if this is something that he'll say at the beginning or the end of the story, but let me just write the scene itself, and then I can place it where it seems to naturally belong. To this day, don't know how. I used to be a plotter. I used to plot out the whole thing and then write from start to finish. I don't know how I did that because that's not really how my artistic brain functions. It just is like, ooh, I can see this scene, or oh, I can hear this conversation, but I'm like, I don't know how that fits like at all. I'm actually thinking of a really particular scene in the second book. I heard RJ say this line, and I'm like, that is just the meanest thing someone could say to another person, and he has to say that to his dad specifically. And I'm like, but I don't really know where that line fits or how it's going to be presented. Turns out it was towards the end of the second book when the relationship is clearly not in a good place. I'm not saying anything new for Angela because she's read the whole first book and she knows the dad is not a great guy. But yeah, that's just kind of how I function. Is I hear something and I type it out, and then I figure out later how it's going to work.
Are all of your books in the category of interracial romance or multicultural, or is that
Great
like
question.
an ongoing? You mentioned earlier you personally
My lived
have,
experience.
right?
So Dove and RJ are, and Raven and her love interest are good. He's going to be white as well, and she's going to be black. That's literally what my family looks like. All 3 of us married white people. But you have to remember, I'm in Colorado, so
Hey.
statistically, that's more likely.
Colorado.
Yep, statistically that's, well, actually my husband's from Kansas, so like let's not even get into that. But yeah, so these 2 stories, I do want them to be interracial romance, partly because Especially with Raven's story, I really want to delve more into the racial dynamics. With Dove and RJ, they exist, but at every place I tried to kind of pull that out, partly because I knew what he was going to do. And I'm like, I just need to try to pull as much of that out as possible. Whereas with the next story, I'm actually really going to lean into it. So I can explore it, because that's another thing that's really interesting me. Like, not just parasocial relationships, but white women creating parasocial relationships and all the things that come with white womanhood, how they use that to our disadvantage. Like 9 times out of 10, I mean, because that was my experience. I had this white woman call the police on me, and I knew immediately what that was going to look like, because I was so angry I was about to start fighting this woman, and I was like, I better walk away, because if the cops roll up and they see this black woman beating this white woman, that is not going to end well for me. They are going to assume she's the victim, and I'm going to get shot. So I literally had to walk away from her, walk several blocks away, and wait for the police, which was a whole other thing. Waiting for them was probably the worst part. I don't have a lot of memory of the interaction because I was so heightened at that point, but everything up to when they showed up, it was just, I felt that escalation. And so with Raven's story, I really want to explore how, like, white women use their power for ill. And so it is an interracial relationship between him and her, and he's white and she's black, but the person who's creating the parasocial relationship is going to be a white woman. That's where a lot of my darkness is going to be coming through. I feel like I've explored a dub-con, non-con experience. I don't need to do that again. I don't need to put my reader through that again, but I do really want to explore other aspects of my own lived experience. So yeah, that's going to be dark. That's book 3 and 4.
So I know I've said on the show before that I protest this characterization of dark and evil, the conflation. A lot of times I feel like when it get to be like, and then things took a dark turn, usually it's some white shit going on. It should be like things took a white turn.
Right.
I reject reality and substitute my own.
Well, I don't know if reality is that dark is bad. That's a narrative that is pushed for sure. I don't accept that narrative.
It's definitely the connotation, whether or not it's the denotation.
Right. Also, I haven't read a lot of interracial romance, but sometimes when I see black characters on shows and they don't have any black friends, they don't have a black family. There was some show I was watching and the black man had a problem with the police, and then he went to his white girlfriend, and I'm like, how could she understand or comfort him? That doesn't even make sense. He would go to somebody black, I think. I mean, I don't know. So I'd be interested to see. I feel like people should be exploring the reality. Is it something you don't talk about? Is it something that you talk about and resolve? Them up and cause trouble or come up in unexpected ways? Does somebody use the N-word in your relationship, and then what happens? It's so far away from my experience, but I have all kinds of theories.
The short answer is when you marry someone, anybody who's in an interracial relationship could speak to that, but I think there is a specific dynamic between someone who's black and someone who's white. And I definitely have taught my husband about racism since we met. We've been together for 15 years. Now he spots it. He's like, that was racist, right? But I remember one time we went into a store and I knew immediately that the guy who was checking us out, he clocked us as a couple, and I could see that he didn't like that at all. And when we got to the car, I looked at my husband like, you saw that, right? And he was literally blind to it. And I was like, okay. I walked him through everything that happened, and he had like experienced it, but when I recharacterized it for him, he was like, oh shit. Like, really? I'm like, yeah, you're a white dude, so like you are literally the center. Those things don't like compute to you. And I'm a black woman, so like I see those things everywhere. And so now he really can pick up on like microaggressions and other things. So yeah, it was definitely a teaching experience being with a white person, but I don't know, he's a good guy. I love him. He is not RJ Cage. He is the opposite of RJ Cage. He's the biggest cinnamon roll you will ever see in your entire life. He's such a good guy. I don't know how he read this book, because people always assume like I'm speaking about my husband, and I'm like, if you knew my husband, you would think something's wrong with me, because you're like, that's not him at all. He's literally making me bookcases right now, because as you can see, I have too many books. And I have more on the floor that you don't see.
You can't have too many books. Boo! You can't have too many books.
Well, that's how I know I married the right person, because I was like, I have too many books. And he's like, I'll just build you some bookcases. And I'm like, I done right? Because he's encouraging me to buy more books by making a bookcase.
But Angela, that the statement that you made, you were talking about people working it out in the stories, correct? Working out when you
No, I think I kind of feel like if people are going to write interracial romance, you had mentioned in Raven, or in Raven's story, I think that you were going to delve more into the dynamics of, like, because RJ and Dove, there's not, I mean, we talk about her hair a lot, or his hair, but there's not really anything like, she's black, he's white, what does this mean? How does this function in the world?
That wasn't my focus or my intention. Actually, if I was ever going to try to put some sort of distance between them, I actually really tried to lean into class, because his family is like, the Dexters, I actually wrote this, I'm like, the Dexters are far from poor. They are not poor people. They live in a single family income household. They're happy black people, but they are definitely not as wealthy as RJ's family. Anytime I tried to like bring up the differences in them, it was usually to do with like the clear wealth difference. It's like, these people live in a house that's the size of an office building versus Dove's family. They live in a nice little 5-6 bedroom house. I mean, it's impossible to completely get rid of any racialized, the racial aspect between them, because they are that. But
race didn't exist in that world, did it? I don't remember race existing.
I really tried to pull it out as much as I could in terms of the tension itself. Like, they're definitely still a black girl and a white guy, but the tension, I really didn't try to lean into the race. Whereas this next story, that's actually the point. I really want to lean into that conversation and all the tension that can bring. But that's because my art is, at least as I've presented it now, my art is a way that I can explore like a handful of topics. And I was like, if I'm gonna have, you know, some dubcon, some non-con, I don't also need to have racism, right? I can try to pull that out where I can, right? Whereas with Raven's story, it's consent will never be a problem in that relationship. So what can I explore when I take that layer off? It's, well, I started it with Dove and RJ, but I didn't explore it much. But now with Raven, I can really lean into the interracial romance part of it, but also just some of the other racial parts, like with the parasocial relationship with I'll call it my villain, because my villain is going to be, I'm having fun with my villain. They're crazy. I love writing all those violent little things that we always have in our brain that we tamp down because we're trying to live our lives. My villains get to say and do some of the most horrendous things, and that's actually cathartic for me. I'm like, I can't really kill that man, but I can shoot him 50 times in a book.
What is writing while black to you, Hope?
Writing while black is writing my truth, whatever that means for me. It means that I get to explore race if I want to, but like I just was talking about, I can pull it out as much as I want to as well, because that's the world I get to create. It's a place where I have complete control over what people say and do, over the location of these things. So that to me is like writing while black, is writing my truth, like my lived experience, which is like so many other black people's lived experience, but also it's a little different because I am a unique person and my journey has led me, we talked about it at the beginning, Angela, I literally could not read well until 4th grade. I was struggling with basic sentences until 4th grade. And that's not everyone's journey. Writing while I was in high school, that's not everyone's journey. So yeah, that's what it means to me, is writing my truth in the way I want to. I don't know if that's a good answer, but
It's
that's my answer.
beautiful. Your whatever answer you give is a good answer.
Answer.
It means just like writing.
It's a big question. It is.
Yeah, it is a big question because it's like I wish I lived in a world where I could just be a writer and not a Black writer, but our experience is so undervalued and under talked about that it's you have to. Like, we are not in the part of human history where I can just be a writer. Maybe in 15 years, maybe in 50 years I can be just a writer, but right now writing while Black just means just being truthful in how I present things. Yeah.
All right. Is there anything else that you really wanted to discuss that we haven't discussed, or that you prepared or did you want to do a reading from your book, or
No.
this is
I hear their voices. That's another thing is I sound like a crazy person sometimes, but I'm like, I know exactly how RJ sounds. I know exactly how Dove sounds, and it's not my voice.
That'll help when you're ready to do your audiobook.
That's true. That's how I want to end it. Is I am really committed to uplifting our communities. My character artist, she was Black. I really sought out someone who was Black for that. And when I get around to being able to do audiobooks, I'm really committed to hiring a Black woman to play Dove, because that is just an important part of me. I feel like a Black person can bring in their own truth and their own lived experience when they are reading through some of these, especially these more traumatic moments. I'm very committed that part of my journey is making sure as I go forward, I'm beta reading for Black people, that I'm hiring Black people, that I'm speaking to other Black people about this, because the community we build is so important for our survival. What's going on out there is absolute madness. I'm so focused on keeping my efforts, my money, my everything as Black as possible.
it's my energy. Keep that energy flowing. The good energy. Keep the RJ energy away.
Actually, someone was asking about the idea of accountability, and I'm like, you know what? He doesn't really get a whole lot of accountability in the first book, but that second book is coming.
So I got my pen out, and I'm going to invite you and everybody in the listening audience to get their pens out. Thank you so much for being here for our conversation with Hope. It was a delight. If you are a dark romance reader or just want to explore the genre, dark dance, dark game, the dangerous duet collection.
Read your trigger warnings.
Read your trigger warnings, and we had two different responses here. But get your pen out. Get your fist up. Right on. Right on.
Thank you so much. This was a pleasure. It was such a traumatic writing experience and being able to talk about it is another level of catharsis.
I say it's good. Yeah. And our it makes so much sense. It's beautiful.
Yeah. Reading, learning, growing, creating, while building, living, thinking, healing, loving, building, writing while Black.